Hello, good evening, everyone. My name is Lila. I'm the events manager and a co-owner at Porter Square Books. Thank you so much for joining us for tonight's virtual panel with some really fantastic new authors. We're so excited to host Jackie S., Joss Lake, Alex McElroy, and Beth Morgan with Harron Walker tonight, and to have you all in the audience here with us as well. So if you don't know us already, Porter Square Books is an independent and employee-owned bookstore here in Cambridge, Massachusetts. We're located on the traditional lands of the Wampanoag people. And we're open every day for in-store browsing from 8 a.m. to 7 p.m. Our Cafe Zing, is also open. Or if you have gotten overly dependent on online shopping like I have, our website is open 24/7 and we do ship nationwide. So a big thank you for joining us here in our virtual event space this evening. Please consider this your invitation to continue to join us whenever. We have fantastic virtual events happening all the time these days, including coming up, we have journalist Noah Hurwitz for his book reporting on drug lord El Chapo tomorrow night. If you're a panel aficionado, join us again on Saturday to hear from contributors to Up All Night, which is a YA short story collection. All the stories happen after midnight, hence the title. And then next week we have Omar Al-Akkad with Lydia Yuknovich and poet Maggie Smith for her wonderful new poetry collection, Goldenrod. So please do check out portersquarebooks.com. You can get more information on all those events. So hopefully we'll see you back again. I just have a few quick housekeeping notes, and then I promise we are going to get to the good stuff. First of all, this event is being recorded. You can rewatch it here at the very same link for you, and it is also going to be on the Porter Square Books Facebook page. We have this lovely chat window, which is open on the bottom right of your screen where it says say something nice. So please do chime in, say hello, let us know where you're watching from, give snaps. Of course, we do expect you to keep it respectful, and anybody who's not maintaining that standard will be removed at our own discretion. And right next to that little chat box, also on the bottom of your screen, you'll see the words ask a question, and you can type in there any questions that you might have for our guests this evening. We'll try to save some time to look at those towards the end of the event. And finally, I want to call your attention to this very handsome green button. It's just below our faces here, and it says order the books from Porter Square Books. So please do click on that green button. It will bring you to our website where you'll be able to place your order for your own copies of Daryl, Future Feeling, The Atmospherians, and A Touch of Jen, again, for pickup or shipping nationwide. So if you enjoyed tonight's talk, I know you will. We really appreciate you showing your support with a book purchase. Treat yourself. And, I really want to dare somebody to just order all 4 because I really don't think you'd regret it. Just get the whole stack. I think that's a good idea. Just putting them out there. Okay, so thank you for bearing with me through the notes. We're so pleased tonight to be joined by Jackie S., Joss Lake, Alex McElroy, and Beth Morgan here to discuss their respective recent debut novels and the intersections between them. And we're joined by moderator Harron Walker as well. So Jackie S. is a novelist, the author of Daryl, which came out from Clash in 2021. This is her first book, hopefully of many, and you can find other bits of writing here and there or visit her on Twitter. Joss Lake is a trans writer and educator based in New York, whose work has been supported by the Queen's Council of the Arts, Women in Performance Study Collective, the Watermill Center, and Columbia University. He runs a literary sauna series called Trans at Rest, and his debut novel, Future Feeling, is out from Soft Skull Press. Alex McElroy's debut novel, The Atmospherians, was published in May by Atria, and other writing appears in The Cut, BuzzFeed, Vulture, GQ, Harper's Bazaar, Vice, The Atlantic, House, and elsewhere. Their chapter was Daddy Issues 2017. Beth Morgan's debut novel is A Touch of Jen, which was just released on July 13th by Little Brown. Her work has been published in the Iowa Review and the Kenyon Review online. And we're so grateful to be joined by moderator Harron Walker tonight as well. Harron is a Brooklyn-based freelance writer and W columnist whose work has appeared in GQ and Esquire. She's currently working on a short story collection for Tiger Bee Press, as well as an essay collection for Random House. So definitely stay tuned for that one. So to my panelists, thank you so much. We're so pleased to be joined by you all tonight. I'm really looking forward to this conversation. And again, thank you everybody in the audience too for being here to listen. So I will get out of the way now so that I can listen as well. Thanks everybody.
Thank you so much for that. I don't want to speak for everyone, but I believe everyone feels very excited to be here, as I do as well. How do you all feel about getting right into the questions?
Yeah, let's do it.
Yeah.
Cool. All right, so Jackie tweeted something recently, and since I'm a lazy media person, I'm just gonna begin with a prompt of, I saw a tweet today. Where she mentioned someone had like called Daryl an internet novel, which reminded me of like press from earlier this year that was calling Lauren Euler's fake accounts and Patricia Lockwood's No One Is Talking About This internet novels. So I felt like just starting by asking all of you, what the hell is an internet novel, and do you think you wrote one?
I'm unmuted, so I can go. Foolishly unmuted. Thank you everyone for being here as I try to think of an answer to this question. So this is really fascinating because I've been thinking a lot about this, especially with my book being described as an internet novel. And I will say before I define it, I don't think that I wrote one. And that was like really confusing for me because I think very little of my book takes place online. And I assume that if a book is an internet novel, it would sort of write about how it feels to be online and what the experience of being online is like. And that's a very small part of my book. I do think that the characters in my book are shaped by internet thinking, and that the extremes that they go to are oftentimes based on a morality of the internet. And a lot of the tension in the book is the clash between how things are online and how things people think they will be in real life based on how they are online.
Yeah,
I don't think I answered what an internet novel is, though. I mean, I guess an internet novel, yeah, sort of, yeah.
There's this is a hippie school of a panel. There's no right or wrong answer. I thought
yeah.
You showed the work.
Great, thank you.
Does anyone else have a similar, conflicting, anything answer?
I don't know. I think that like the time during which people are going to start calling things internet novels is like dwindling. Like I think that pretty soon the internet is just going to be such a big part of our life that like just writing fiction that's about the present is, yeah, why is there an echo? I'm sorry. I'm going to mute myself and figure this out.
I did see, I don't know, Beth, if maybe you have this open in two different tabs that apparently maybe causes an echo. I don't know.
Well, I mean, while we're figuring out audio, I've got a cop to, since I wrote this tweet. I mean, I was really just bitching out a bad reviewer. Like, I really was like, this is such a weak take on the book. And that was, you know, it's actually kind of poor form, I think, for an author to go in on reviewers. And I thought, I can do this a little bit gently. I don't know if I was right or if I was wrong to do that. It's really the only time that I've like gone after a review. And I think I just did it lightly. And what had happened was that basically this person was saying, well, you know, there are all of these conventions of the internet novel, which Jackie's novel does not fall into. However, and I thought, well, why not just then admit that it's something else? And so my relationship to the category was a little bit negative. I mean, I guess one thing that kind of confuses me about the whole internet novel concept is we talk about the internet and we mean like, I don't know, ubiquitous Facebook or something like that. But there's already been internet novels that were written by like, you know, Douglas Copeland or something in the 90s. So it's sort of the term is somehow sort of off. And I think that what ends up happening is that it's really a way to write off work through kind of like generational stereotypes. And so I'm willing to play with generational stereotypes. I mean, why not? It's a potentially it's a marketing category. I have a crass and commercial side, I have to admit. I wouldn't mind selling more books. I think I might be on the kind of comparatively more indie press end of the people in this panel, and I would like to sell a few books. And so if somebody wants to call my thing an internet novel, they're quite welcome. I actually think it really needs to blow up on TikTok, and maybe we should get into that. The novel is in many ways a reflection, a commentary on Lil Nas X. That's really what we're trying to do. Okay. I mean, there's BookTube, actually. I was amazed. I had some great YouTubers from Australia got really into the book, and they made these great videos, which I think, I like those videos more than I like a lot of the reviews that I've seen. What does Daryl think of Industry Baby? Oh, we rock with Montero for sure. And the Jack Harlow, that made me smile, because I felt vindicated. I felt kind of like, oh, well, maybe I only like Jack Harlow because of the Cougar bars or whatever. But, but no, it's a beautiful track. And I feel very, very vindicated to have been a Harlow stan for a minute now. Okay. Yeah, Scott and Nell. I'll put the link in the chat. They're wonderful, and they're reviewing everybody. And actually, I think they might be planning to do a review of Beth's book at some point soon. I don't know. I'm just over talking.
Oh, yeah. Speaking of Beth. Wait, Beth, do you want to try again? I'll try muting this time. So maybe the echo was my fault.
All right. How's it doing now? Is it good? All right. Yeah, I mean, all I was just saying is that I just feel like, I don't know, I just feel like the idea of calling something an internet novel, I don't know. I mean, I guess I don't feel like I wrote an internet novel, although like so much of the book occurs because of events that happen online and because of how people are brought together through like an Instagram. It's like two people, stalking another person on Instagram, basically. But she's not a celebrity. She's not like an influencer or anything. She's like a friend who like one of the guys hasn't seen in a long time. And so in a way it's like, it's a book that could sort of like, it's sort of like Instagram really helps these characters interact, but it's not like essential to the way that they need to do it necessarily in some way. Like, I feel like maybe their obsession would find a different outlet, just one that's sort of like less articulated in a particular idiom, if there weren't Instagram. I don't know.
Could I ask you a quick question about Instagram? Like, one of the reasons I'm scared to use that site is that like it shows you who watched your story. That freaks me out. It's like the only social media that snitches like that. And I just like, I don't want to use the site because I don't want to get the message like, oh, so you saw my video, what did you think? And and because with the rest of social media, like it's like the web, I click it, and unless you are, I don't know, a server administrator who knows my my IP address or something like that, it's not connected. My click is not connected to me. I'm just reading, like checking a book out of the library. But Instagram somehow is ruining that. So I actually do have a lot of opinions on the internet, and it's that Instagram is evil.
I somewhat agree. And I'll also say that, I mean, my impulse is to definitely recoil at the term internet novel and the sort of assumptions and reductive nature of it. But I will say that I'm at a place where I'm pretty open to kind of playing around with the limitations of genre. And so if someone wants to call my book an internet novel, like, that's fine. I will say that, again, sort of like what others have said, the internet allows for some of the instigating actions, but actually most of the book doesn't take place like on the internet. It just sort of is the terrain that allows things to sort of happen in a more accelerated way. And I will also say that I think I'm in this book in particular interested in sort of like emergent technologies of both, tools, but also relationships. So I just think there's a way that by calling it an internet novel that sort of flattens out, just flattens out the sort of the many different kind of realms that the book is playing in, and sort of making it seem like it all kind of takes place on the internet.
I got to cop to one thing though. My next book is like a kind of like a cyber interactive multimedia CD-ROM, and so that's going to be kind of an internet thing.
So you're all talking about the internet so much, but I just have to call you all out for not mentioning identity once. This is the Internet and Identity panel, so I just want to hold us all accountable on that. How would you all say that the internet, social media, however it does or does not like play a central role in the plot? How do you think the characters in your books form their identities in and around, in relation to, outside of, totally separate from, however you want to say it, from the internet?
Well, I mean, I wrote about a guy named Daryl who watches a lot of internet porn and thinks it's true at some level, and so there's a way that I'm definitely have my characters engaging with that. And he mentions actually engaging with a couple of forums, and he mentions that he meets some Portland-based cartoonists who may be in the lifestyle with him and all kinds of stuff like that. So it is the case that, you have to go and find the others. This was something Tim Leary used to say, that you have to go find the others. And it was pretty good advice, among some bad. And so that's happening, but I think the internet is really just a tool. Like, I really do have the sense that, he'd be printing letters in the back of a magazine that comes in a brown paper bag, if he were doing this all 10 or 15 years before. But his way of finding identity, it's not very connected to the internet. And I have to say, likewise. I don't know. I think that there's a kind of like there's a way that we actually kind of sell ourselves short by imagining that everything reduces to this kind of like technological contingency, and saying that, because I did such and such in the Obama era, that I am an Obama era person, because I did such and such in the Occupy era, that I am an Occupy era person, or something like that. I think that with many things, there's a kind of like an inner necessity that is something that we actually, it has a sort of subjunctive character to it. I would have been myself no matter what. I would have found some way. And, and the internet is one of those ways. But I think it's actually not a very important such way. It's something that's actually relatively transparent. It does seem very important in situations where, like, there are no IRL possibilities or whatever. Maybe there are some ways that it makes it a little bit easier here and there to connect to people. But I don't know that, like, the internet has been more effective for that than, say, media mail, that allowed, the flowering of a certain kind of zine culture or indie presses in the early part of this century. All right, I mean, media mail wasn't always there. And I think media mail had more effect, or like LiveJournal style, social media, or Lambda-Moo or something like that. There's so many ways that you can do it. But most of them are really forgettable, and they lead to identity labels that just like totally disappear. I mean, the shit that I used to see, like, the first trans person that I met was a person who didn't identify in a way that probably most of you would recognize as trans, or maybe you would because you're nice, right? But you wouldn't, like, you'd be like, what is that? What is that word you just said? Nobody remembers it. Anyway, but that's just maybe something to say about identity. I keep over talking. I worry. We only have an hour. What if I talk the whole hour?
No, I'm absolutely here for Jackie's masterclass on identity and the internet. No, I mean, so I love a lot of what you're saying, and I think that, like, that, I guess I wasn't sure, Harron, were you meaning like in relationship to our books, or like how, like, our own identities, or like both?
Oh, I was specifically, like, I meant more like, how does the internet play into characters' identity formation? But I give you all permission to disrespect the questions and answer whatever question you want.
Okay, great. I guess I'll say in relationship to my book, it's definitely for the narrator of the book, Sasha. She's someone who's living in relationship to an idea of who she is based on like an assumption of who she is. She's an influencer, and she like has a lifestyle brand, and and there's like one scene in the book where like her lifestyle brand does not allow drinking, but she drinks in public, and she's worried that like someone is going to see her. So I think that for my book, the internet is almost like a force of consistency and some kind of like strong arm of consistency that's holding people accountable in a way, just like Harron did with the title of this panel. And so I think it's like, for my book, I think I've really been fascinated by the ways in which I will say that inconsistency is seen as like a bad thing in one's like relationship to their online self. And I think that the internet sort of allows certain like snapshots of who we are in ways that rarely coalesce into an actual human. And I think that when those two things are placed alongside of each other, the like, inconsistencies and hypocrisy of like moving through the world and like changing your mind, when that is compared to something that like that can be like sort of dug up or returned to, like an image or like a screen cap of something that was said like 10 years ago, without allowing for the evolution of one's relationship to that thing. Or without sort of showing how one's mind will change in the process of having a conversation. That really interests me, and how like I really love just the ways that people are sort of like spontaneous and changing and swerving sort of in real time. And I think that the identities that we form on the internet don't really allow room for that. And so I'm really fascinated by that clash between the two ways that we identify, or that we are assumed to be people.
Yeah, likewise for me. I mean, messiness really comes up a lot for my character Penn, and this sort of way that he's intensely projecting onto a trans influencer, and just, I mean, knows intellectually that obviously what you put on the internet is not the same as what is going on in your life, but like cannot kind of break this really anxious like relational force field. And to him, he just sort of sees himself as kind of living in this very abject trans reality, and using the internet to sort of both kind of create a fantasy of what trans life could be, and also to kind of keep fueling his own sort of self-negating tendencies. And so by having Penn and the influencer actually meet in real life and sort of be sent on a mission, it kind of forces him to move from the internet. Everything moves from the sort of realm of the internet into life, and there's just even more kind of messiness to dig into.
Yeah, I think the characters in my book do make the mistake of taking social media as like a highly, highly meaningful correlate to life. I think they see it as almost as like a form of self-actualization, like as a sort of part of the process. Like when one of the characters is like really trying to change her life and like change everything, she deletes her entire social media before and then sort of like starts over completely new. Like, I think that she sees it as like something that is, because I think she's modeling herself so much on someone else on social media. She sort of sees that as the arena for transformation. And and like for Jen, who is like the person posting, like I think for her it is very much like, I think it is kind of a meaningful correlate to her too, because it's like a story that she can tell herself about herself. And it is also like she's an entrepreneur and she's like trying really hard to like bring this beautiful life about. But it's also sort of happening effortlessly. And that sort of like contradiction of like the effortlessness and her chillness online, like, and the way that she's like actually, and the way that she's also sort of trying to like present herself as someone who is able to change her life and is able to like and is able to kind of manifest in a way. It's like, it sort of tells on it as a fantasy, because these are two things that don't really like, that sort of like can't both be true in a way. It's like she's, and I think it sort of like is a way for her to augment her sense of her own specialness, maybe. Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, dealing with this question of awareness, either, you know, on the side of the person, the side of the person posting, or the side of the girl reading the post. There is, I don't think it's a great like sweeping claim to say that, you know, fiction often relies on like its characters not fully grasping a situation, not having full awareness of something, or full self-awareness. And I think the internet and social media in a lot of ways, especially how they function within your novels, would conceivably provide more awareness or more knowledge about a situation. So I guess like how did you all navigate that line of like keeping people, I guess, kind of stuck in their own lack of total full self-awareness or enlightenment, when they could conceivably just like, you know, pick up their phone and Google the answer for what they wanted?
Well, I certainly think that unawareness is a big part of stories also that involve coincidences and masks and things like this. And so that's actually, I mean, for me, maybe unawareness is part of the story for this reason. You know, like Oedipus, you know, everybody, the Freudians fucked us up because Oedipus doesn't know it's his mother, you know? If he did, he'd be like probably even more into it if we believe Freud. But you know, he didn't know, and that's kind of part of what makes those stories go. Yeah, I don't know. Actually, I wanted to come back to something that Beth had said about the you know, treating the internet as this like a valuable form of public address or an arena of self-actualization, which is that like I don't think that is a mistake. I mean, you know, it obviously can be taken a bit far, but I think that there are really, you know, vanishingly few venues for you know, the public use of reason, and that is one of them. And the fact that people have an ability to address a public, or that they have a self-concept which includes a public, may actually be like a really positive development. At least I hope that it can be. And it's something that, you know, in my book, my characters actually kind of lack, and it leads in some ways to their downfall, right? I mean, Daryl is a character who doesn't really hear what other people have to say about his life because he doesn't have to. And he's insulated by that, not because he's logged off, but he's insulated by that. He's insulated by his money, basically. That's the main thing in his case, by his money, his perception of himself as a private and conventional person, no matter how crazy the stuff that he does actually is. But I think that kind of like retreat to our particularity does not really reliably guarantee anything good, or it guarantees things that are as good as the status quo. And, you know, and you go and become the king of your castle or something like that, which is in a way what he's doing, although he's a very degraded sort of king, maybe a court clown or something like that.
Yeah, I mean, I'm curious about what Harron was saying with how I dealt, or how I think all of our books deal with a lack of self-awareness. And I guess I've had my own fair share of like searching for self-awareness on the internet, and it has never helped me. Like, no matter how many like, you know, are you codependent memes I like pour over, like it doesn't really help me in the end, like get any more self-awareness. It might give me some buzzwords, it might give me some things to like say to myself. So I guess I'm curious about like the difference between there's like the information that can be gleaned from the internet. Like if someone's like, oh, like I should be meeting this person at 2 o'clock and they're not here, but I can look up on my phone that they're like still eating lunch, then I should come at 2:30. Like that seems like informational. But whereas like I'm the type of person who obsesses over the fact that this person is going to be late, and then I get upset about it, and then I think that this person hates me and that they have cut me out of their life. Like, that's a thing that you can't really find an answer for on the internet. So I think that there will constantly be those failures of insight, no matter like what sort of avenues we have towards finding answers. And I think that the abundance of answers online is almost detrimental, because you can start to give name to something without actually grappling with it or something like that. Like, you can begin to say, like, this is who I am, which I think is related to what we've talked about with identity, right? Like, we can begin to, like, you know, armchair pathologize ourselves, but not actually have an understanding of like, what are the core things that are making me like as anxious as I am, or something like that, or as like desiring, of sort of interaction. Yeah. I'm trying to read Jackie's response too at the same time.
I like this sort of talking about armchair psychologizing, because I think it's something that, like, I mean, I don't know how people interact, but I feel like just sort of like, you know, psychological investigations of like the people around me are often like what my friends do and what I do and stuff. And like, it's, yeah. So I'm like working, I feel like this is actually less relevant to the book that I wrote and more on like a book that I'm writing now, but I am trying to write a character who's like really into like psychology and understanding herself through psychology. And she's like hyper self-aware, but like, it's been like really fun to sort of like make her fail to make connections sometimes, and to sort of like make her sort of reason go around her blind spots and stuff. And like, because it is sort of funny how like you like she'll say something kind of like, oh yeah, well, I act that way because of my childhood, and then it's like kind of this inert information that doesn't actually meaningfully change anything about her life. It's just kind of like, oh yeah, like I understand it, so you know, so that's basically that's it, that's as far as I go.
Yeah, I think for me, the question of the character's self-awareness, it's definitely evolved as I found myself wanting to make Penn more aware and like to have him go on a sort of journey, but not exactly know when to cut it off and what to sort of confront him with. And so I do think that for me, there's a question of kind of like bringing him out of this more kind of myopic sense where he's just really sort of submerged like in his feelings. He doesn't really have perspective, and kind of bring him into a community and like bring him more into relation with others. And I think just having other people around sort of knocking into him and kind of interrupting him and the stories that are kind of going on in his head, was a way to kind of give momentum to his journey and not have it kind of flatten out at some point. But I also, yeah, I agree that I think him having access to the internet cannot really, like, he has to kind of find answers in all sorts of places, but having the information there really is not what is helping him evolve.
Okay, you're watching the facial struggle of not knowing if I'm off mute yet. Jack, you said something about this development towards, I guess, like a self-conception through using social media and the internet as tools, towards conceiving of yourself as like not just an island, not just isolated, but like having a public and existing within the public. I kind of want to turn the spotlight away from your characters and onto the four of you real quick. Considering all the parasocial relationships in the books that you've written, with people who are both being projected upon, people who are just like addicted to projecting on some random person that they've decided to obsess over. Like, what kind of experiences have you all had as public figures? And have you like felt any pressure to construct identities online, either as individuals, as authors, either, neither?
Sure. Yeah, I think I have. I think a lot of the pressure, and I think like all of us has probably faced, especially as like debut novelists, is coming to terms with suddenly becoming like, um, traveling salesmen, like just trying to like, carry our wares from like site to site to get people to like buy our book. So I think that it was like a very different move for me, like becoming the type of person who was willing to very much. I think when I like during like the lead up, I just very much was like, I'm going to be insufferable for the next 5 months, and I'm just going to like do it. And I've sort of like fallen into that, and I think so that was a really strange sort of shift in like how I was, and I think, but at a certain point, everything just for me got back to the medium. Like I'm not a traveling salesman at the end of the day, and I think I eventually found some place in between where I was just okay talking about things that happened every once in a while with the book. But for the most part, I think, yeah, I felt a lot of pressure to be either the type of person who would constantly be like hawking this book, or the type of person who would, yeah, I don't know what else, just be a like perfect kind of author who was like, saying all the right things in interviews, or so that I think was especially a huge part of like how I was presenting myself online.
Well, obviously, as everyone can tell, you've said nothing but offensive things all night, so maybe work on that. Would anyone else like to answer the question?
Sure. I mean, I have a kind of a different vibe with it because I've enjoyed being an author as a public figure. Like it's been quite a lot of fun. I mean, it's a complaint that I've had because there's aspects of it that are definitely not a choice. Like if I was attached to a bigger press, for example, I might have like a publicist. I don't have a publicist, so I have to be my publicist, and my sales team is me and a few of my friends and so on. And so you got to decide, like, do you like selling lemonade? And the answer is, yeah, hell yeah, I do. Yeah, welcome to my lemonade stand. It's been a good time. So I do think that there's an element of that, which I wonder if it's going to make things really difficult. Like there are certain writers who are not going to feel the adaptation to that, and it's going to really hurt. I think that there are a lot of books that don't make it, that have nothing wrong with them, but the author is not willing to sit behind the book at the table at AWP, or that actually doesn't matter. But the author is not willing to sit behind the table at the book on Twitter, Instagram, or whatever, play ball in interviews, say yes to everything, all of that kind of stuff that you're supposed to do. And that does make me a little bit sad. But then I kind of take my inventory of it and say, like, yeah, I guess I'm kind of like an extrovert, like an introverted extrovert. Let me explain to you how. But that is it's fun. As far as like being treated as a public figure, I mean, there's obviously like a little bit of anxiety about the way that these things have gone, like in like YA lit or sci-fi or something like that, where you've seen authors like become the object of like basically people's powerless thrashing, like I hate that this is in the world, therefore I hate the people who put this in their books. And, it becomes a way to take out, that feeling of powerlessness on often fledgling authors, and I had a lot of anxieties about that, but my anxieties really have not been borne out at all. Because I think that I basically, marked my book, like it says on the tin that it's kind of an NC-17 title, and so that kind of took me out of a lot of the trouble. And I constantly like align myself to these writers that are a little bit grody, like, in any given interview, I'll be like, oh yeah, like, so it's kind of like Philip Roth. You like that? Yeah, okay. Yeah. Do you like Bukowski? And I'm not really like these guys, I'm not writing their way, nor really speaking in their language. But I find that those are little links in the chainmail, that protect me as an author figure. And that's worked out fine, I suppose. But yeah, like I think that the notion that we're pressured to become public figures strikes me as very odd. Like it seems to me rather that we are public figures, all of us, and that writing is in some ways a part of that, right? That somehow we address a public with our work. And we continue to address a public as we carry that work. And, obviously we sort of obey the rules. Like, for example, like I don't overinterpret my book to strangers before they can read it, that kind of thing. But yeah, that's all I got. Sorry to kind of land in the middle of nowhere.
Yeah, I mean, I'm pretty new to this. Like, I feel like my book came out pretty recently, and it's just been like a very small shift that has mostly happened like online. Like, it's really like it hasn't changed my life very much, except that like I gained probably like maybe 100 Instagram followers, and like all of a sudden, just like that tiny difference has like totally changed my experience of Instagram, where it was just kind of this thing where I was just like, oh, like it's like intimate, it's like my friends, like, you know, maybe my like acquaintances. And now it sort of feels a little bit weird because it's like, it's really nice, but I'm also just kind of like, I'm a little paranoid about the attention too. I'm just kind of like, oh, like I just don't know who these people are. Like, what do I, it's like, it is really crazy that we are addressing the public. That's so true, which is like something that's very obvious and that I didn't think of when I was like writing a book. I was just like, it's just a book. People read it by themselves. Like, I wrote it by myself, but then it is this very public thing that is like it is very strange to like give interviews and like be on panels and stuff. And like I always thought that like that would be the fun part, because I also sort of think of myself as an extrovert, and I was like, man, it's so hard to like do the writing, but like the fun part will be just sort of like talking about the book and all that stuff. And it's actually like really, I find it really difficult and like really anxiety inducing. Like I talk to myself in the shower about my process all the time, but then like talking to like an interviewer, it's like really, I don't know, it weirdly makes me sort of like just really clinch up and stuff. It's, yeah, I don't think that I was prepared for it at all. I think I'm still kind of
Did Beth's audio die for anybody else?
Yeah, just for a second. I just wasn't sure if it was my computer or not. Beth, you're. Oh, okay, cool. So I guess it's like nearing the end. I think the audience Q&A is coming up in a second, but I wanted to ask, like, how did the last year and a half or so, like post the imposition of like COVID restrictions, how did that affect your identity as writers, online, offline, within community, however you define yourself as a writer?
Basically not at all. I mean, I wrote another book in that time, which I feel like, you know, eventually I'll have a lot more to say about that. But as far as like being a writer, I feel like somehow writerly identity is something that gets made a lot of, but it, you know, being a writer is writing books, and we all did that, and we'll do it a few more times, and isn't that nice? But as far as like my concept of myself as a writer, I mean, one thing I guess I could say is that, like, you know, I kind of know I'm online a lot, and now I feel like pretty much everybody is online, so we can all talk to each other on Twitter or whatever. But I'm actually not even on a very like live portion of the internet, right? Like when I look at what people are doing on Instagram, YouTube, TikTok, whatever, like I have no idea. They have gigantic audiences. Like nothing I've ever done or will do is likely to reach the kind of following that like the most basic, like horrible YouTuber will do. And like, I'm not going to name names because actually there's some really good YouTubers out there, and I should be shouting them out. Like, you know, oh no, actually, yeah, Alana is pointing out in the chat that I did like a really weak riff on John Legend, where I said that he was like, that he'd changed his name from Jack Myth, and that did more numbers than anything I've ever done. But that attests to the power of pop, you know, like more than anything else. And I think that's kind of the moment that we're living in, is that, you know, everybody's gone pop, and not too many people care about real hip hop anymore. And so that's kind of the perspective that I'm trying to bring. And it's been difficult sometimes, you know, because people don't appreciate skill. You know, they don't they don't know what's real. You know, how about instead of the computer files, you tell me how you really feel? but that's not what happens, you know. People don't even really know what they're talking about. They just, anyway, never mind.
This chat is just like a long thread of all of the authors admitting that Jackie got us all with the Jack Myth joke. Okay. Yeah, I will say. I mean, how has my identity as an author changed? Probably that not that much. I mean, I feel like I'm around fewer authors now, and maybe I feel more public about my work. Online in ways that I wasn't previously because I'm no longer having those conversations, or for a long time wasn't having those conversations at like bars or coffee shops. So I felt more of a need to like text with friends or to tweet about things or to post about things on Instagram, just because I was really looking for that communication with other authors, which is something that I really didn't feel prior to the pandemic. I think I was just really craving that connection with other writers that I used to have in person, but didn't really have this last year.
Yeah, I think for me, I kind of enjoyed being this like online avatar because I moved to the Midwest for a while, and so I would kind of like pop into Zoom events. But it was interesting because I didn't really have like often I've experienced like literary culture in New York through like waves of intensity and FOMO, and so it was very strange to just kind of like log into a Zoom event like in my own space, and maybe even like have my camera on, have my camera off. And so there was, I don't know, this sort of pleasure in kind of moving in and out of literary spaces, but like from my own home. And I also think that events, at least in the beginning, felt even more like important. Like I remember going to the We Want It All event through Topos and just like feeling like the sense of connection and being around other people. It felt vital in a way that sometimes like prior to the pandemic, just like I would go to a lot of literary events, but often like in a rush and after work and kind of exhausted. And so it did in a way kind of make me just appreciate the ability for people to like come together, even if it was on the internet.
The question was like about how our identities have changed as authors through the pandemic. Was that, sorry, I'm just clarifying.
Oh my God, my computer is moving so slowly. I'm sorry. Yes.
Okay.
Basically,
Just
yes.
making sure. Yeah, no, I mean, I think that this is just a really, like, I haven't really been an author, like, until, like, very recently. So I don't think that I really felt, yeah, I don't know that, like, I've experienced being an author in any other way, which has been kind of nice in a way. It's been very, like, everything has felt very manageable because I've experienced so much of being an author just like from my house. I mean, I will say I was completing an MFA program, and being in a Zoom room with like the people in my MFA program was like really suboptimal. It was like that was not great. But like I don't know. I mean, I feel like in some ways it's been a nice way to sort of like experience being an author for the first time. Our MFA's fun. Should I do one? Oh man, another panel for another day. Yeah, I don't know. I think it's actually been sort of like, I mean, not that it has not been nice, obviously, but I think it was like, for my sort of anxiety level, I feel like in some ways it was the best way for me to sort of like slowly get on the on-ramp of sort of like being an author and a writer in public, for sure.
Okay, and I think we're nearing the end of our questions. I just want to hit you all with one last question. So, I mean, pick another character if you think, if a other thing you want to answer, but So Alex with Sasha, Jackie with Daryl, Joss with Penn, and Beth with Alicia. Like, what do you think their favorite website is?
Alicia's favorite website is definitely Pinterest, for sure.
I would say portersquarebooks.com.
Yeah, I would say twitter.com/Jackie S. But no, I think Daryl would probably be, he would be really excited when he discovered Reddit. I think that he's a very Reddit guy, and that Reddit guys are in general very Daryl. And if you're out there and you're a Redditor, you should read the book.
Actually, I'm trying to Google what this is called, but my internet's really slow. So it's this website where you can look out of people's windows from all over the world. It's really cool. I really can't find the name, but yeah, that would the window one.
Is it from the windows to the walls.com?
Let's see. Yes,
cool.
right.
So, I think that's Jackie, you might be thinking of something awful. I don't know. Maybe rotten.com.
No, sorry. It's a song called "Get Low." It's the first line.
I've heard of it.
Little bit of a party number.
I might be 19 years old, but I've heard of that indie banger from the early aughts. Okay, we have a couple of audience questions. So from Riley, Riley asks, first comments, I sort of waver between being excited that people are creatively and intelligently thinking about what our lives look like on and with the internet versus thinking the, quote, internet novel is a terrifying sign of how too online so many of us are, and like a warning that we all need to turn off our phones and go outside. Clunkily, do you think there is a, quote, dark side to the, quote, internet novel?
Yeah, I mean, definitely. I mean, one thing I will say is that one thing that can happen is that if you have a scene that's like, it's chugging along and everything is small and people know each other and whatever, and then a little money wafts into the room, just the smell of it, and a couple people start making it. There starts to be a whole different kind of noise. There's a new platform that people can get on. It kind of fucks up the dynamics in a way. And often what you end up with is that nobody really makes it, or only one or two people make it. But somehow the way that the big money has kind of like crashed through your scene, it never quite recovers. And so I do wonder whether what the kind of indie lit scenes are going to look like, as the possibility of blowing up online becomes more of a real prospect. You get a different kind of, you get different kinds of conflicts, you get different kinds of grift, you get different kinds of dishonesty. We're probably going to start seeing small scale payola and stuff like that. I don't pay anybody for reviews of Daryl, by the way. You should pay, anyway, you should pay me. I buy the book. But that is one dark side. And I think another dark side is just it's such a boring conversation, I don't know. I mean, even I considered saying no to being on this panel because it was called Identity in the Internet, but I was just but it's cool people, it's going to work out because I like the people. But the concept of, of an internet novel, I think is just fucking bogus. And I mean, at a certain point, it's writing an electric novel or steam powered novel or something like that. And so I would say that the internet novel is the steampunk of the present. And steampunk has a dark side, and I'm not just talking about Joss Whedon being canceled or whatever, but I'm talking about Firefly being really kind of annoying. Actually, my next book is a little bit about that, so you can all stay tuned and come check that out.
Yeah, I feel like I need to now confess that I came up with the name of this panel. This is my grift for just trying to bring the audience in, and I'm glad that yeah, exactly. So no, but I mean, I think what interests me about this is because I do absolutely no, it's totally fine. Because I think you're right. Like it does seem like a total grift, but I think it's also your interest in like I think the dark side of like the internet novel is how it is going to be like made extremely reductive, and I think a lot of the conversations about it have been like extremely reductive. In that there can just be a focus on like what is the internet and how does it shape us, rather than that. I think can be a really brief way to write off a certain style of book that is engaging with just how it feels to be alive right now, because it can say like this is just like a young person's book, or this is just like a different generational book that doesn't have the same weight or heft that like domestic realism might have. And so I absolutely think that's like a dark side of it, and I think that that's coming from the outside as an imposition, and how it is being used on so many books that are thought of as minor because they deal with something that is thought of as like non-literary or not as like intellectual. So I'm absolutely concerned about how the label is being applied to like our books, which is I think is probably the reason why all of us tried to like scramble away from being called from having written internet novels 45 minutes ago. Yeah.
And I mean, just like, sorry about that. I was a bit rough in my descriptions, and I guess I want to say that actually, just to reverse things a little bit, I did write an internet novel, and I know that all of you out there love the internet. You love logging the fuck online, but you don't know how. You love identity, having an identity, doing identity politics, whatever that is. But are you doing it right? Maybe there's only one way to find out. So maybe you should read Daryl. Right? Because it's also a book about sex. I know that people like sex. I hear it sells. And it doesn't just sell. It's something that you do. It's a practice. It's how you live. And, you know, you might be doing it wrong. Are you going to find out how to do it? Right? I mean, you got to check it out. That's what I want to say. And I also want to say sorry.
Well, I don't want to just devolve into, you know, like bitter tribalist, like internecine sectarian identity bullshit. But as a moderator, I completely disagree, obviously. We do have a reader or viewer question for Beth specifically. So anyone can swoop in and unmute first if they feel like it. So Alana says that they read Touch of Jen in a frantic 48 hours last week, and this is first person, so I'm not doing an impression. Okay. I am still reeling. I'm wondering about how you wrote such uncanny, eerie, and bizarre main characters. How did you get in that? Sorry, it's a fast car. How did you get in that headspace and balance those types of protagonists, making them weird yet still readable enough to keep going? They reminded me a lot of the films by Yorgos Lanthimos. Are you a fan of his work?
I gotta confess, I have not seen any Yorgos Lanthimos movies, although I've heard a great deal about them. But yeah, I don't know. I mean, I just was sort of like, I don't know. I don't think they're that weird. I think they're kind of normal, like these characters in some ways. But like at the same time, I think they feel weird because I like made a decision to. I mean, it's interesting that she brings up movies because was definitely thinking about it in a sort of cinematic idiom. I was like, I just want to see if I can like make these characters interesting, like using like 70 to 80% just exterior signs and not like trying to go into their interiority. And so that was sort of what I was interested in. And it sort of had like a kind of weird tonal effect. So then I just sort of ran with it, I guess. Yeah.
Oh my God, am I unmuted? Am I unmuted? Okay, cool. Has anyone, so I guess to open the question over to everyone else, like based on sort of something Beth said in response to Alana's question. Motorcycle. Has anyone, for example, Jackie can demonstrate what a motorcycle is like. Has anyone who's read your book, a reader or critic, just come to you with like a totally, or not totally different understanding of the characters, but just one that you're like, oh, I didn't think of that, or oh, I'd never think of that character that way? I'm muting.
I think maybe nobody's come up with like really big surprises. Like I think Dominic Fox wrote a really great review of Daryl in Review 31 that kind of helped me to articulate a couple of things in the book that I had been saying on some level, but I didn't quite have the words for. And I thought like, wonderful. Finally, I've been read by a philosopher because I feel like I'm not a very good philosopher. And so I feel like I was able to sort of speak about the character's approach to identity, or especially to non-identity in Daryl's case, the kind of provisionality of identity. And that was something that I felt that I didn't quite know how to do. And maybe Daryl would have been a different book, actually, if I had been better at thinking about that when I had first started to write it. A lot of the messages that I get are from people that are like, wow, like, I didn't know anybody else was into this. And I'm kind of like, you still don't, but I don't know, maybe you do, because, my book covers a lot of fetish material. And so sometimes I've definitely gotten like surprising and interesting messages from people that I really appreciate. And I always respect people's privacy, by the way. Like, even if you write me, I'm not going to put your stuff in my next book or something like that. I don't do that. I'm not going to repenny in you or whatever. I didn't actually get the verdict on whether the cat person thing was okay. It was kind of a boring story, but that's the real crime. What you do with people's lives is never mind. It's the privilege of the artist. But the thing is, So I've definitely I've gotten people who have, it's not so much that they tell me things that shocked me so much about my own book, but I have found that one of the beautiful things is that when somebody writes you about a page that nobody else has written you about, somebody just really zeroes in on a chapter and it's like, yes, I remember rewriting that paragraph. I remember what I was thinking there, why I wanted to do that. And so those experiences have been really good. And I've definitely had a few people come in on certain pages, one person who I guess respecting readers' privacy. I mean, I don't think that I should say who it was, but somebody, there's a description of dancing and who gets away with being a bad dancer in the kind of blues bar section when they first go to Reno, and one person ever noticed that page, and that those kinds of moments are so important to me, and they do happen and they keep happening. So I really appreciate that.
Yeah, I'll just echo, not that anyone has been particularly off about anything, but just that actually hearing responses from readers kind of changes sometimes the book for me, and it sort of makes it feel enlivened and sort of, yeah, it just really it's just a really gratifying thing to sort of look at your book through someone else's eyes. So yeah, I've definitely been more surprised sort of in a positive way by responses than a negative one.
Actually, you know what? I actually have gotten one really wrong interpretation of Daryl. But I'm gonna now that you put it that way, it's it's possible to go very wrong. So I do want to say that for the most part, my book will tell you kind of what to do, how to feel, how to live. But there's a possibility of misinterpretation, and you could seriously do the wrong thing. And that's why you got to read the next book, right? Because if you know, because you want to get what's in Daryl, but if you miss, you're fucked, like completely. That's it, right? It would have been better not to play the game, because what you gambled, what you put on that table, you fuck with the green visor guys, you know, that take everything. This is not World Series of Poker. This is not Vegas. Everything.
That's right. If you don't buy the follow-up, you're only getting half the story. Question from Porter Square Books is, what is everybody reading right now?
I'm reading Fight Club, which is a wild ride. The first time I'm reading it in like 12 years. I'm working on an essay about it. So it's the 25th anniversary in August. So yeah, I'm thinking a lot about, yeah, exactly. I'm not allowed to talk about it actually. But yeah, that's what I'm reading.
I'm trying to become an amateur mycologist, so I've been reading Entangled Life. I think, Beth, I feel like I saw you, yeah. And it's really blowing my mind. I really can't recommend it highly enough. It's a book about fungi.
Well, I guess I'll just answer the question.
You disappear when your camera goes off, so I think it's probably just a quick.
Oh, okay, all right. Yeah, okay, I understand now. But I guess what am I reading? Oh, that book is really great. My dad is actually super into Merlin Sheldrake's father, Rupert Sheldrake, who was like just a really wacky, interesting fellow. And everybody should definitely Google him. He actually as a result of reading Rupert Sheldrake in 6th grade, my dad convinced me to do my science fair project on whether or not animals are telepathic. So it's a really, but also Merlin Sheldrake's book is great. It's amazing. But I'm reading Ripley Underground right now, the Patricia Highsmith novel, which is sort of it's like one of the sequels to the Tom Ripley ones. And it's fine. It's okay. It's okay. I like the first one better.
I really want to ask you about those Ripley sequels. I mean, I should just read them, but I just remember watching The Talented Mr. Ripley with my friend, who I have kind of romantic feelings for when we were in middle school, and it was really difficult because anyway. But you know the plot of all of that. But what a wonderful kind of white suits kind of sort of fancy boy aristocratic universe that thing takes place in. I'm in the middle of 5 reading projects. I have a little group where I'm reading Zipperin's new translation of the Zhuangzi. I've been reading W.B. Du Bois's Black Flame trilogy. I've been obsessed with Hugo Grotius, this kind of early modern philosopher who's probably most famous for Mare Liberum, the free sea. It's sort of the concept of international waters, basically traces to this guy who at various times, he was imprisoned in a castle and had to escape in a chest full of books. He is sort of the author of many concepts in international law, but he authored this somewhat at the behest of the Dutch East India Company, who were, of course, at that very time that he was, stashed away in the castle, engaged in some horrific massacres in it's now Indonesia in the Banda Islands, and so there's a kind of this complexity to these concepts that are very foundational in some sense to sort of how we think of the world. And I was totally convinced as I started reading this that this needed to be material in the next book, and it totally doesn't. And now I'm just stuck on it and kind of being wow, too bad I'm not an international lawyer. Not going to start over, but that's kind of what I'm reading. Oh, and actually, I got sent a manuscript. It's so great. I got sent a manuscript by this guy Leroy Searle. He's kind of a literary theory person. He was an English professor out in Seattle. I know this guy. I know his son, and I've been I love their stuff. You know, like it's such an underappreciated current, and I had the good luck to sort of, you know, be friends with this guy and like wander into this seminar at some point in my early 20s, and it's like been this like bright star in my horizon for a long time. And so I read everything that those guys tell me to. That's the other thing I'm doing. So probably the next thing is Muriel Rukeyser. Are any of you into that? I mean, it's good stuff. I got her book, The Life of Poetry, and it's currently overdue at the library, and I think I'm just going to pay the fine and read the rest of it.
Okay, there we go. My mute is gone. Alana asked me in the chat what I think of The Story of the Lost Child, which is one of the books I'm reading right now. Sorry to give a basic answer, but I love it. I love those books so much. I love just how Ferrante writes about like someone who just forms. Well, speaking of a book that like predates any sort of like, that kind of like is an example of what Jackie was talking about, of like the internet novel is actually not describing the thing it describes. The Ferrante novels, the Neapolitan novels, are like just about like one woman who just like projects with every ounce of her life onto her best friend. Yeah, Lynette, absolutely. Nino is the worst. Every time I think he's gone, he's gone. I see everyone has practiced their Italian with Stradone. I actually didn't get any. I opened all my books. There was nothing. It was just pages and text, and thank God I could read them. But I guess I gotta get the cold one next time, the cold box. Does anybody have any final thoughts they would like to share on this panel, on the audience over here? Okay, sorry, I only know Stradone. I'm waiting for Italian advanced level, so my apologies, Jackie.
Don't repeat that. It's not a nice word.
Okay.
Well,
oh no, go ahead.
Welcome back.
Yeah.
Oh, I was just going to say I hate to end it on dead air, so I want to thank everybody for having me out here and letting me be a little bit punchy and annoying and over talking, and you know that's kind of how I do panels, and you know, good hanging out. We should hang out a little more. I'm around, and when I say around, I mean in this very room where you see me now. I ain't going anywhere. It's Delta variant. It's fucked up. You know, I don't want to deal with that.
Yeah, this is a weekly panel, actually.
I don't know
if we've told Porter Square Books this yet, but it will be, yeah.
Same bad time, same bad channel.
Yeah.
You all joke. However, I would say that there is a way to continue this panel discussion, and that would be buy all the books. Buy all the books. This green button, again, you can order your very own suite of internet and identity books and think about all of these things, take this panel account into perspective, and maybe you'll get invited on to our next installment of this weekly panel. So thank you so much, everybody, for joining us and for telling us a bit about your books and your thoughts on internet and identity, these massive, weird concepts. This has been so wonderful. And I can't wait till we do it again. And I can't wait till one day we can do it, you know, in person when those things resume again. I think enjoying the internet novel or the non-internet novel in person is its own game. And, you know, that's the one thing I would say with all of the really wonderful virtual debut panels I've had. I think it's a totally different experience, but we can't wait to welcome you into the real life book event world as well. So thank you everybody for joining us, and we'll see you next time. Thanks so much, and click the button.
Go buy some books.
Night, everyone.